We're going to go ahead and get started. This is the Work Your Body Type webinar. And, the reason that I decided to do this is just because I have been personal training and doing fitness for 22 years. And every time I meet people in the gym or training a group or teaching a class, they want to know, what can I do about this? What can I do about that? And I want to tell them one thing, or they'll ask about a diet, and it really just doesn't fit. It doesn't, everything doesn't fit for every body type. So that is why I came up with this webinar. So I am Althea Lawton-Thompson, for anyone tuning in who doesn't know who I am, and I am the owner of the Living Life Limitlessly lifestyle program. I'm also a 22-year certified personal trainer and fitness instructor. And there's me. I have been in a lot of different magazines, and I used to have a TV show and a whole line of videos, and now I'm hosting retreats around the world just to talk about fitness and wellness. So let's get right into it. What we're going to do is start out with talking about the general soma types. The soma type is the clinical term given to body types. There are three general body types: an endomorph, a mesomorph, and an ectomorph. And you can see the images on your screen now. An endomorph is the body type that typically gains weight first in their midsection. They do not really have a waistline, whether this is a man or a woman. They just tend to go outward through the middle section. And when they lose weight first in the arms and in the legs. It's rarely in the middle of the body. A mesomorph is kind of the opposite. This body type has a smaller waistline. In a woman, it looks a little bit more like an hourglass shape. In a man, they tend to be proportionate top and bottom with a small waist. When they gain weight equally, upper and lower body, unless they're top heavy or bottom heavy. And we'll get to that part in just a moment. And when they lose weight, they tend to lose weight all over equally, unless they're top heavy or bottom heavy. And we'll get to that part in just a moment. The ectomorph is the complete opposite of the endomorph. This body type, again, tends not to have a waistline, but it's because they're more rectangular, straight up and down. If you are a pure ectomorph, it is very hard for you to gain fat, tissue, or muscle, top or bottom, man or woman. This is the young guys you might see who are swimmers or they're runners, and they're just lanky and they can eat all day long and you just don't see them gain anything. And the same thing for young women. Now, before we move on, I want to tell you that when you're deciding what your body type is, you don't want to look at yourself right now eating the way that you eat now, maybe at the age of, let's just pick an age, 52 years old, and say, this is my body type. What I want you to do is to go backwards to your teenage years. Think about how you were naturally built, how you looked between the ages of 18 to 21. 18 to 21. If you can think of what you look like at that time, most likely that's your actual body type. Now, not too many of us fit into the pure ectomorph, mesomorph, or endomorph. Most of us, particularly women, and most of the people that are on right now are women, we carry weight either top heavy, bottom heavy, or strictly in the middle. And when that happens, then we need to talk about some other things, especially when it comes to exercise and how our body is going to change as we age. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. So here are the 13 different body types that I came up with based on what I've been seeing in 22 years of personal training and working with men and women. Now, for those of you that know you have to go, if you stick around to the very end, I'm going to turn the camera on and I'm just going to pose for y'all, and I'm going to show you a true pear shape. That second one on the top on the left for the women is me all day long. I use myself with a little cartoon drawing, but you might see yourself in some of these other ones. So let's go through them. In the straight body type, that's just like the ectomorph. This is a person who doesn't have a waistline as a teenager between the ages of 18 to 21. And as they get older, they find that they pretty much keep this body type, but when they gain weight, it starts showing up in different places. And I'm going to talk about aging a little later on in the presentation. The pear shape is a bottom heavy body type. Erica, if you lost sound, hit reconnect on your phone. If anybody else loses sound, let me know. Okay, on the pear shape, this is a person who is bottom heavy. They tend to be smaller in the chest, smaller through the shoulders, small in the waist, very wide through the hips. They tend to be bigger in their bottom. Their thighs are pretty thick, and they stay big through the knees and the calves. That's a true pear shape. In the spoon shape, it's slightly different. It has the smaller waist. It has a smaller chest and narrow shoulders. The hips are wide, like in the pear shape, but the legs tend to get smaller as it moves down toward the knees and the calves. The hourglass shape is a little bit heavier on the top than the pear and the spoon-shaped woman, but she's similar to the spoon. She's just bigger in the chest. On the top-heavy hourglass, it is just like the hourglass shape, but the shoulders tend to be broader than the hips, and the breasts are big. They're bigger than the hourglass shape. So this is a woman who's hourglass shape, but she probably has D cup and above, and her shoulders are wider than her hips. On the inverted triangle, this is the body type where the hips become narrow, the waist starts to disappear a little bit like an ectomorph, the legs are pretty shapely, but the shoulders are broad. And it's a little bit harder to see the neck sometimes on this woman. If we were looking at a back view, she would be pretty broad across the upper back. For the ice cream cone woman, this is the lady who is very slim through the ankles and the calves, the knees, not necessarily slim, but maybe they're muscular. They're very toned, very tight. The hips are a little bit narrow, and like the endomorph, the waist starts to come out a little bit. The chest is not as big, or it could be, it just depends, but the shoulders for sure are broad. So if you think about how an ice cream cone is shaped, it's small at the bottom, it comes upward and out wide, and then the cone is at the top. So that's the ice cream cone shaped woman. Very broad through the shoulders, through the upper back, through the chest, big through the midsection, slim through the hips, and slim through the legs. Now we'll go to the oval. When we get to the oval woman, this person is thick in the midsection, thick through the hips, but smaller in the chest and shoulders than the stomach and in the whole midsection. When the oval woman gains weight, this is more like a pure endomorph, it happens right in the middle of her body. And some of them can be a little chesty. Sometimes an oval-shaped woman can be chesty as well. It just depends on how nutrition is. And when I get to nutrition, we'll talk more about that. In the oval shape in the ice cream cone, you may also find that the butt is a little bit flatter, but you're bigger through the shoulders and you carry fat on your upper back and across the chest. And that's just the way it works on an oval and an ice cream cone shaped body. Now, if you are any one of these body types, and we usually fall into one of these that I have across the top, usually one of those 8, it's usually hereditary. There's probably someone in your family that you could go back to and look at them and you will see that body type. Now, you may not look just like your mother or your father's mother or a sister or an aunt, but there's somewhere in that family that probably has your same body type. And when that's your heredity, it really doesn't matter what type of exercise you do. You're not going to change your body type. You can manage it and make it look a little different. And that's where I'm going to go with the nutrition and exercise. But I'm a pear shape and I'm going to be a pear shape all day. I can do leg lifts, squats, leg presses for the rest of my life, I will always have cankles. Those are calves and ankles that are all together. And if you stick around to the end, I will show you my cankles. But for everyone that knows me, you know I've had these cankles since you first met me. All right, let's move on down to the men at the bottom. The lollipop-shaped man is very similar to the ice cream cone in that they have very slim legs. It's hard for them to gain muscle mass on their legs. They usually have pretty flat butts, a very small waist, but they're really broad through the shoulders and the chest, and it's easy for them to gain muscle mass up top. As they get older, they tend to gain weight also in the chest and in the midsection. And so the midsection does not stay as small. In the balanced man, this is your true mesomorph. Equally weighted top and bottom. They have a little bit of butt. Their thighs are a little bit bigger than the lollipop man. They have the smaller waist. And if a balanced man wanted to build his upper body, he could. It would just be a matter of lifting heavier weights, being very dedicated, and that could happen. That would not happen for a rectangle. A rectangle body shape is your pure ectomorph. That's that straight up and down. They don't have a waistline, more rectangular shaped, and it's very hard for them to gain muscle or fat. In the triangle man, this is very similar to a pear-shaped woman, and there are quite a few men that have this shape. They have a behind, they have thicker thighs, thicker calves. They just tend to carry their weight from the waistline down. And they tend to be a little bit smaller in the chest. Their shoulders are more narrow and their arms are small. A triangle man can get their arms to be bigger by lifting weights, and that is the recommendation, which I'll talk about when we get to exercise, which is coming next. And then lastly, the oval man is the exact same as the oval female. They carry most of their weight right through the midsection, chest, abdomen, back, on down to butt and hips. And then they get smaller as you move down the arms to the wrist and smaller as you get down to the calves, ankles, and feet. All right, and now we are going to get into the actual prescription by body type. So we're going to start with the straight body type, the inverted triangle woman, the rectangle body, and the ectomorph body for men and women. In this body type, it is typically hard to gain fat, tissue, or muscle. You can eat all day long, more calories than anybody else, and you just don't seem to get fat or gain any weight. Now, let me say, on the ectomorph straight inverted triangle woman, if you had breast when you were 18 to 21, meaning BCD cup, that's your body type, and you're going to have BCD breast tissue. That's how you're built. Even if you're skinny and straight up and down everywhere else, it's just how it goes. For the lower part of your body, it's very rare that you see an ectomorph, a straight, an inverted triangle, or a rectangle body type with junk in their trunk. It's very, very rare. And I'm going to get to your question, Felita. It's coming up in the next one. When I give you the exercises for it. So what do you need to do to give the impression? And that's really what we're talking about here. We're talking about what do you do to your body to give the impression of the shape that you want. For this body type, you need to be consuming protein-rich foods. So let's talk about the protein-rich foods. These are foods that are lentils, beans, fish, meat, turkey, chicken, that's protein. Those are protein-rich foods. And this type of body type, the more protein-rich foods they eat, the more likely they can put on some muscle mass. They can get away with consuming carbohydrates, and they should consume carbs. Yes. So when we talk about carbohydrates, let me make a clear distinction between what a simple carbohydrate is and a complex carbohydrate is. Simple carbohydrates are pastas, potatoes, starches like bread, cereal. Those are simple carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates are green leafy vegetables like spinach, kale. Those are also carbohydrates. But when I'm talking to this body type, to be real, you could get away with simple carbs all day long, and it will give you the energy you need because most likely this body type also has a very high metabolism. It burns calories just as quickly as the calories go in. And for those of you that are endomorphs, or maybe you're a bottom or top heavy mesomorph, you may be thinking, oh, that lucky ectomorph, straight, inverted, triangle, rectangle. I'm telling you, my friends who are these body types, they don't want that. They want to be the mesomorph. They want some muscle and some fat and some breast and some butt. So just remember, be happy with what you have and learn how to work with what you got. Okay? That's the quote of the day. All right, but let's keep going on. Consume calories, ectomorph. You don't need to be dieting. You need to be eating. You need to be eating all day long as you're hungry. Inclines and hills are good for training. If you are using a treadmill, you should be using the incline so that you can build some muscle mass on your thighs. You should be running up and down Stone Mountain because that's going to boost whatever little booty you've got and get your thighs going and build up the calves. Calisthenics, and I'm going to show a picture of calisthenics later. You're going to see calisthenics in almost every slide, but I'll tell you now that calisthenics are anything that does not require equipment. Jumping jacks is calisthenics. Running is calisthenics, but I don't mean those type of calisthenics for this body type. I mean, you should be doing squats. You should be doing push-ups. You should be doing exercises that will build muscle. You don't want to do too much running because it's going to burn more calories and your metabolism is already high. Anything that's muscle building, put weights on, add the weights, do some leg presses, do a hamstring curl and put some weight on there, leg extensions, a bench press. This body type should be in the gym and they should be stacking some equipment, stacking some weight on there. That is not necessarily the case for the other body types. So let's keep on moving. And I'm going to give you some more specifics when I get to pictures of the calisthenics. Okay, prescription by body type for the mesomorph. This is the smaller waist body types. Your lollipop, your balanced man, the pear-shaped woman, a spoon, an hourglass, and a top-heavy hourglass. Now, let me tell you what's so interesting about these body types. But these body types have fat tissue in breast and butt. It just is kind of natural for a smaller waist person to have this. But like I said, I'm a pure pear, so I'm very bottom heavy. Some people are top heavy hourglass or they're lollipops and they naturally carry body fat up top. So you have to have a really healthy combo diet to manage this. Now, let me say this about the mesomorph. A mesomorph body type, and all the body types you see on your screen right now, this is the easiest body type to gain muscle and to lose weight. All a mesomorph has to do is think, you know what? I'm going to get fit right now. Make 2 or 3 small changes, and in about 2 weeks, people can see the difference in them. That is just the luck of the draw. That's just the way the DNA is with a mesomorph. They don't have to work as hard as the other 2 body types to get the changes that they want to see. So a healthy combo diet is enough to get you what you want, but portion control is the key. And this is serious. So what I mean by portion control is you cannot go to the buffet and load up your plate and go back 3 times. Now you can if you want to, and then say, well, I'm going to go exercise, I'm going to go run, but it won't give you the change as quickly as if you can control your portions and do some cardiovascular exercise. So now let's move down to mix of cardio and strength. And I have to give you different prescriptions for top heavy and bottom heavy. So since Pamela asked about pear shape, let's start with the bottom heavy person. For my body type, bottom heavy, when I do cardio, it's better to be on a flat surface. I should not be doing inclines and hills because the lower part of my body builds muscle quicker than the upper part of my body. And the same thing holds true for the balanced man and for the, I'm going to change the slide really quick, for this triangle man right here. See the triangle guy? Okay, so what I'm about to say works for him as well. Okay, I'm going back. So the triangle man, the pear-shaped woman, the balanced man, any of those bottom heavy ones, they got to be careful about stair steppers, inclines, hills and mountains, because muscle naturally builds more on them and they carry fat, and muscle and fat are two different things. So once that muscle builds up, it's going to push the fat out. So women who are bottom heavy, who are doing all these leg presses and squats and lunges with weights and, working out with people who are skinny at the bottom, they probably wonder why their jeans are fitting tight. It's fitting tight because you're bottom heavy. You shouldn't be doing that. You got to be doing straight cardio, like speed walking or jogging on a flat surface like a track, or swimming, or jumping jacks, or some Zumba or dance aerobics, things that are not going to be building muscle, but they will be burning and increasing your metabolism and burning calories. So that's what I mean by that mix of cardio and strength. Top heavy is just the opposite. You can get away with jogging on an incline on your treadmill, or doing the stair stepper, or increasing the intensity on an elliptical machine, or adding some weights to your lunges, or putting some weights on your squat, because all it's going to do is make your legs look more shapely and pretty. The quads, it's going to boost the butt a little bit, because most likely in this body type, you've got a little butt. So it's just going to shape it really nice. What you do want to be careful about, lollipop man and top heavy hourglass woman, is doing too much bench press, flies, things that are going to build up the upper body, because it's going to make you look unbalanced, which is what you see in the lollipop. And a lollipop guy, they could be getting away with a little less upper body work, and they got to get on that leg press. They've got to start doing some squats, things like that. And yes, Pamela, you asked about knee injuries. Definitely water aerobics is fantastic. And I will say, for people that are trying to tone in the water, if you're not scared of deep water aerobics with the flotation device, fantastic. If you are willing to wear the ankle water wings and do things like a cross-country ski, that's going to build up the muscles in your legs. But, it'll even work for a pear-shaped woman. Let me read the question from Angela White really quick. So when I do endurance exercises, walking miles across terrain, I'm adding to my spoon shape. Not really, because you're a spoon shape. If you're a spoon shape, that means your legs are naturally smaller. Your hips are wide, but that doesn't mean that your butt is big. Wide hips and a big butt are two different things. And I'm going to show it to you when I put the screen on me. And a spoon shape tends to have a little flatter butt, wider hips, and shapelier legs. So that kind of body type going across terrain is going to build up the quads, it's going to make the hamstrings look pretty, and it's going to shape out the glutes. So that's great. But if there's fat on top, if you're doing 31 to 50 miles cross terrain, you're burning calories anyway. What I'm talking about is someone that's going for a walk for 30 minutes, but they're going uphill and they're pear-shaped. Like, that wouldn't be good. Yeah. So with the body type that Angela has, it sounds like she's a little bit more pear-shaped rather than spoon-shaped. If you're big down to your knees, you're more pear-shaped than you are spoon-shaped. Spoon is a little thinner in the thighs. Pear is thicker in the thighs. You don't want to be doing too much uphill terrain. It's okay to go cross country. Yeah, you're going to tone, but you want to be careful with too much incline. And then, like I said, just to round out this mesomorph, quick results. A little bit goes a long way with this body type. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the endomorph. I did this workshop for a corporate office last month. And when I got to talk to the endomorph and, kind of asked, was there anybody in the room who was this body type? This lady just gave me the meanest look. It's not my fault. I'm just telling you the facts, people. Don't shoot the messenger. This is genetics. And yes, Lori, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the heavy arms part, because that can come in a little bit here. So in the endomorph, this is the person who carries their weight through their midsection. And I'm going to tell you that this is the body type where it takes the longest to see results. In a mesomorph and an ectomorph and all of those variations within those two categories, losing is easy. Gaining for an ectomorph is hard. For an endomorph, it's the complete opposite. Losing is very hard. Gaining is very easy. But on the plus side, gaining muscle is easy for the endomorph. The waist, the stomach, your muffin top, right around the side is the first thing to gain weight. It's not the breast. It's not the arms. It's not the butt. It's not the thighs. If breast, butt, arms, and thighs gain first, that's a combo of a mesomorph. If your midsection, I mean right where your belly button is, right, left, front, and back, is the first thing to get big when you gain weight, then you have some endomorphic tendencies. And so the triangle, the oval, the ice cream cone, they fall into this category. Simple carbs have got to be avoided by this body type. Like as soon as they consume them, it just turns right into sugar and into fat. And this is the case with everybody actually, but it has to do with metabolism and how we burn the sugar. So what happens with glucose in the body? It's stored for energy. And that's why when people are getting ready to run a marathon, you know, people who are getting ready for like the Peachtree Road Race, they do carb loading the night before or the day before. And it can be simple carbs because they need it to store energy to go for a long distance. If you're doing exercise as an endomorph, this body type that we're talking about now, and your exercise routine is only 15 to 20 minutes, you haven't gotten in to the fat stores that are burning energy. Fat is there as stored energy for when you need it. And so marathoners and distance runners tap into that after a period of time. The warm up, the 15 to 20 minutes of starting any kind of cardiovascular exercise that makes you breathe hard and get your blood pumping, is using the energy that's already there, your short-term energy stores. So you're not getting into your stored fat. And that's what the endomorph needs to do. You are avoiding simple carbs. Let's talk nutrition first. Big time portion control. You have to pay attention to eating smaller amounts of food. For this body type, grazing is good. And I'm going to have a slide later on that talks about grazing, but I mean kind of eating small bits throughout the day so you don't wait until you're ravenous or hungry at dinner and then you're not able to control the portions. Maybe you just have a little yogurt and some berries in the morning, and then 2 hours later you just eat a handful of nuts, and then your lunch, and then after that you eat an apple, and then after that you have a bag of chips because you're human and you want snack, you know, something salty, and then you eat dinner. Like, don't just eat your 3 meals and don't eat in between. You have to graze throughout the day to manage your portions. And then healthy fats, meaning that you want to be eating things that have extra virgin olive oil in it, vegetable oil. You know, you're not trying to eat the trans fat. You're trying to stay away from a lot of processed foods, fast foods, fried foods. You have to stay away from that for these body types, because immediately this body type, it just turns right into fat, and it goes right to the midsection, right, left, front, and back of the belly button. So what do we do when we're talking about fitness for this body type? It's all about cardio and calisthenics. If you want to do weightlifting, you can, because muscle builds really quick on this body type. And I'm going to tell you, the legs look great on this body type. It's not, you don't have to do a lot. You don't have to do lunges and squats and all that, just naturally. And you will know what I'm talking about. If you know anyone with this body type, look at their calves. They're beautiful. Their knees are shapely. Their quads and hamstrings just come in like they were born that way. They don't have to do anything. It's as they get to the midsection that it becomes a challenge. And then the arms. Somebody asked me a question about the arms being heavy on the top heavy. Yes, you could be a top heavy endomorph. You could be a top heavy mesomorph if you have bigger arms. If that's the case, you don't want to be lifting too many weights. You want it for the arms, I mean, like bicep curls or tricep extensions, not too much because you're carrying fat there. You want to really get into your cardio routine and wait until you see the arms start to slim down before you get into some heavy weights. Now, could you do light weights for toning? Absolutely. So I would recommend something like 5, 8, maybe 10 pounds max for women, 10 to 15 pounds max for men on the arms on an endomorph for someone who has bigger arms up through the biceps. But you'll know if it's fat. If you can pinch it, it's fat. If you can't, it could be solid subcutaneous fat or it's muscle, and you'll know the difference. Cardio and calisthenics is definitely the key, and just know it'll take you a little bit longer to see results. Now, let me also say this. You cannot spot reduce. You cannot spot reduce. So I'm just going to tell you, if you're a top heavy endomorph, you are going to lose weight in your legs and butt first when you lose weight. And I don't care how you feel about it. I get mad every time I lose weight and my breasts go away. They're already A cups, but that's the first thing that's going to go on me because it's the way I'm built. If this is your body type, which we're talking about right now, your calves, your ankles, your knees, and your thighs are going to get smaller first. And then your wrist and your forearms will get small next. And then possibly your neck. And then you will start to see the weight loss and the rest of your body. So it's just the way that we're built. Okay, let me read a couple of comments that have come up. Okay, so great question, Pamela. She wants to know exactly which exercises am I talking about for each of the body types. So before I get to those exercises, let me tell you the difference between fat and muscle, which is what I was talking about just a little bit earlier. And I mentioned this when I was answering somebody's question about the arms, the heavier arms. And I was saying, if you pinch it and it's soft, it could be fat. If you pinch it and it's firm, it could be muscle. Fat and muscle are two totally different things. Totally different. Now, the picture that you see on your screen is showing muscle on the right, fat on the left. They weigh the exact same. If I had these on a scale right and left, the scale would be dead set even. Muscle is more compact naturally. Fat is more spread out. It's not as dense as muscle. So that's why I have a problem sometimes with BMI when people say, well, my BMI, which is based on your weight and your height, my BMI is too high. And so I've got to lose weight. Well, a bodybuilder, their BMI is going to be off the charts, but they're mostly muscle rather than fat. So definitely you want to know the difference in your body between fat and muscle because they are two totally separate things. And because you're trying to lose one doesn't mean that you're automatically gaining the other. You have to do different things for fat and for muscle. So before I get into this, I'm going to do a really quick poll and then I'm going to really break this down. What do you think is the most popular body area concern for men and women? Do you think it's the arms, the tummy, or the butt? Think hard before you answer this one. Nobody thought arms? Nobody thought butt? Okay, you all are right. It is the tummy. Every time somebody comes up to me, they grab their stomach, they squeeze it and jiggle it and say, what can I do about this? And then they tell me how many crunches they have done. Crunches will not get rid of fat on your stomach. Why? Because fat and muscle are two different things. So if you're doing crunches, you're developing the muscle that's under the fat on your stomach, and you probably have a really sexy six-pack underneath the layer of fat that's sitting there. When I'm talking about doing cardiovascular exercise, that's any exercise That gets your heart rate up. You feel it pumping. It causes you to breathe hard. And since our glands are different, not everyone perspires the same way. But typically, in most people, it makes you perspire. If your exercise is not increasing your heart rate and making you breathe hard continuously for at least a minimum of 20 minutes, you are not getting into your fat stores. Now, here's the next thing I have to tell you. There is no such thing as eliminating fat. Fat expands and it reduces, but it does not disappear. So once a fat cell is in your body, it's there unless you surgically remove it. But I will tell you, be very careful about surgically removing fat cells from the body because you cannot control how it remains in the body, what's left. It's not going to just be even and smooth. It might end up being bunchy and look like cellulite. So that's when you saw the people when liposuction goes wrong back in the 90s, that's what happened. They thought, well, I'll suck the fat out, but then they were left with lumps because you can't just smooth it out like peanut butter on bread. This is subcutaneous fat that's under the skin. So the best thing to do is to get your cardiovascular exercise up, get your endurance up, where you can maintain some type of exercise. And if you get bored after doing 15 or 20 minutes of the same thing, then you've got to do some interval training. That's why things like boot camp work out kind of well for people because it keeps their interest. It keeps them doing different things. First, you're lifting weights, then you're doing push-ups, then you're jogging, then you're running somewhere, then you're doing some steps. It's so much variety that an hour has passed and you're doing it in a group setting and it's kind of fun. So that works for burning fat. And at the same time, you're building muscle. So I said a little bit earlier that I would talk about calisthenics and which calisthenics would be the best ones for certain body types. Calisthenics are anything that you do that does not use equipment. So we're not talking about bicep curls or leg presses or resistance bands or any of that stuff. What we're talking about right now are things like jumping jacks, kickboxing, squats, push-ups, plyometrics. The picture that's on the bottom of the screen in the middle with the guy jumping up and doing that side kick, it's actually a martial art move, but that's plyometrics. When you see the athletes training for a sport and they have a box in front of them and they just do a dead jump, just straight from the floor up to the box, that's plyometrics. Or jumping and pulling your knees up to your chest and then landing, if your knees would allow it, that's plyometrics. Another example of plyometrics, if you're doing push-ups and you push up to clap, that's plyometrics. It's like a burst of energy that requires you to use the large muscles in your body to complete the move. But all of these that I have listed here are really good for burning calories, getting your heart rate up, and you can do this as interval training. So just as an example, I like to do a 5-mile walk from my house through a neighborhood, through a park and around the track. And then I go up and down the bleachers and then I go to a park and I only jog uphill because my knees and hips can't take it anymore. And then in the middle, I'll just stop and do 10 push-ups. And then when I get to a flat surface on the track, I'll just stop and do 8 lunges on each side with a balancing knee lift in between each repetition of the lunge. And that it does a really great job of shaping my legs as a pear shape. And it keeps me interested in what I'm doing and it breaks up the routine. So that would be an example. For an endomorph, you can get away with doing all the leg stuff because your legs are so beautiful and it's going to be using big muscles and it's going to keep your heart rate up. So really any of these, the push-ups, the lunges, the squats would be great for an endomorph. If you have knee problems, do your squat against the wall. Remember those things they made us do in middle school and gym and PE when we had to sit against the wall and then see how long we could hold it? That's using muscle. You're going to start sweating. You're not moving or doing anything, but the muscles are working and they're going to start trembling and you start sweating. Yoga is fantastic. You hold certain poses, like a lunge, it's not moving. You hold that for 2 or 3 breaths. You balance on one foot. Those are great things for shaping through the legs and the arms. Pilates, fantastic for shaping through the core, the whole midsection. It's not going to burn as many calories as doing something that gets the heart rate up, but it is definitely going to tone and shape the body. I just want to make sure I say this before I forget it. I know a lot of people love to stand on the scale, but I'm going to tell you the scale is just not giving you a realistic picture of what's happening with your body. It's just not. Because if you're gaining muscle and losing fat, you're going to be mad and say, I'm not losing any weight. No, you're not losing any weight because you're building muscle and you're kind of weighing the same, but you're looking different. My recommendation for really measuring how these recommendations on exercise are going to make a difference is to get a tape measure, take pictures of yourself in your underwear, in a swimsuit. Find an outfit that you used to be able to fit into that you can't fit anymore and try that sucker on every 2 months. Don't try it on every week. Don't try it on every 2 weeks because it's just going to piss you off. Wait and do it once a month, once every 2 months, and only if you're staying consistent with changes in your eating and your exercise. I'm a big fan of taking pictures front, side, and back in your underwear and a swimsuit. After I had my second son, I took pictures in a tank top and some exercise shorts, front, side, and back. I still have those pictures. And I kept the same tank top and the same shorts. And that was 16 years ago. And so every once in a while, I just put them on just to see what's really happening in my body, because you forget when you see yourself all the time. But it is helpful to see people who haven't seen you in a while, because they'll let you know, oh yeah, wow, you look different. It's just you can't see it. Okay, so Carla asked, how do I build upper body strength? I can't do 5 push-ups. Start with 1. Start with 1. Do it on your knees. You're not going to get to 5 if you can't do 1. How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. I do remember that I was working out in the gym. I was already teaching exercise classes. I was 25 years old. My legs were super strong because I'm pear-shaped. My waist was small and I couldn't do a push-up and I was too embarrassed to tell anyone. And my workout partner was like, come on, let's go do some push-ups. And when I whispered to him that I couldn't do push-ups, he didn't believe me. And I went in the back and I tried to do it and I fell right down. And he said, that's all right. Let's start on your knees and let's just do 1. And we did 1 every day for 2 weeks. And eventually I could do 1. And then we went to 2 or 3, doing them only on my knees. And then eventually I was able to do them on my toes. So when I get to the prescription at the end of this, when I said those tips I'm going to give you prescriptions on how to slowly start building up your strength and your endurance to get to your 20 minutes or more of cardiovascular, to get to 5 to 10 push-ups when you can't even do 1. So that's a great question, Carla. Okay, let's move on and talk a little bit about what happens when we age. So all of that stuff I said is for maybe 45 and under. When we get over the age of 45, and you can just type in an amen if this is true for you. On both men and women, you will notice that your tummy gets a little bit bigger. And I don't care if you are an ectomorph or a mesomorph. My stomach has been flat my entire life. As soon as I turned 45, I started getting just a tiny little pooch just below my belly button. And this has to do with, for women, menopause. If you've had a hysterectomy, it's a little bit different. But for women that are going through menopause naturally, thank you for the amens and the yeps. You know I'm preaching right now. Well, you will find that happens because you're no longer in a childbearing state. So our body carries fat, even if we're narrow in the hips, even if we're an ectomorph, we carry our weight a certain way because the body is able to have a baby. So right now I'm talking about just women. But once you get past 45 and the body starts moving in to premenopausal chemical actions within the body and the hormones start to change, fat starts to develop not only under the belly button in the front, but also on the back. And it happens along the low back, and it happens along the bra line. Now, I'm a bottom heavy mesomorph. I'm a pear shape. My upper body is really tiny. I've always had A cup except when I was nursing. But across my upper back, I now have fat. And I just didn't even believe that could happen. So most women will find that this is what's going to happen. You just start gaining weight through your midsection regardless of your body type. And for the endomorph, I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. It just is more. Okay, your breasts get bigger. The breasts do get bigger. So I don't care if you're an A cup, you're about to be an A plus or a B minus cup. If you were a D, you're going to be a D plus, and you're going to get toward, I think they call it ING cups. That happens naturally. And let me tell you something. Don't think I'm only talking to women. This is why you see men, particularly endomorph men or men that carry weight in their upper body, like that lollipop shape, they start to gain breast. Now, again, if you've seen this, women, I think, are only on this right now, but I'm sure some men will be listening when I make this live. Just a little amen or a yes, you've seen it if you know that what I'm saying is true. Men start to develop breast tissue as they get older, and they don't like it. And they can do push-ups and they can do bench press all they want, but remember what I said, fat and muscle are two different things. So just like you're trying to burn fat around the butt and around the midsection, the same thing will be true for the breast. And just know that if you're a top-heavy person, you're going to lose that fat around the bottom part of your body first. But if you're bottom-heavy, it will go away from the upper body. You just have to give it a little time. Gravity happens. And so all that stuff that we have, it gets pulled down. And that's going to happen on all of us. And that's where actually cellulite comes from. It's just gravity pulling on the fat that's in the body and making it bunch up. If you pull it up with your hand, like against gravity, you see it's really smooth and beautiful. And then as soon as you let it go with your hand, it goes down again. So it's just gravity pulling on fat. And then that's what happens with the breast, and that's what happens with the butt. That's natural. It's part of the aging process. You can surgically fix things if you'd like, but naturally, aging is just going to do what it does. And it's something to accept. And I don't think there's anything wrong with aging gracefully. I am embracing the changes of my body, and I welcome other people to do the same thing. All right, lower abdominal pooch, we talked about that, the back fat, and then on everyone, metabolism does slow down. But let me say this, it may not slow down as fast on an ectomorph person who's getting older or somebody who's very physically active and eating well. So if you continue to be physically active well into your 50s and 60s and 70s, your metabolism will not slow as quickly as someone who is a yo-yo dieter, someone who's on again, off again exercising, or someone who's sedentary and they don't exercise at all. And then finally, someone mentioned a little earlier about their knees. Our joints are all going to change as we get older. The fluid that's there, the cartilage, the fat, all of the things that support our joints as we get older, it starts to get a little more brittle, a little thinner. Some of the fluid goes away. And so things that you could do when you were in your 20s, 30s, and early 40s, it's not going to be as easy to do it later 40s, 50s, and 60s, simply because the joints are aging. And my recommendation is to be kind to your joints. My father was a marathon runner for many, many years, a competitive marathon runner, and did very well. He's on the cover of magazines and things, and it's just his life. And his joints began to break down as he got into his 50s, and he just would not stop. He wouldn't stop. And after multiple knee surgeries, a hip surgery, Now he's walking with a limp and it's difficult to even walk. And that's a shame. So what you want to do is be kind to your joints. Don't overdo it. Let your body age, recognize it, and work with the aging process. So now we can start talking about some of the helpful tips. I mentioned grazing earlier. This is when you want to be eating small snacks and meals throughout the day to keep you from being ravenous late at night and needing to eat. Eating and exercise work together. You don't really want to just be working on your nutrition and then sitting around watching World Cup all day, watching soap operas and evening dramas and CNN and the news and not doing anything. And at the same time, you don't want to be exercising and then cheating on donuts and cake. They work hand in hand, and you will get wonderful results if you're working on your exercise program and you're eating simultaneously. But here's the main thing that I wanted to say to Carla a little earlier when we were talking about the push-ups. One thing at a time. If you don't remember anything else that I say from this webinar, please remember one thing at a time. Because if you try to do too much at once, you'll get overwhelmed, you will get frustrated, and you will drop off. And you just won't do it. And you'll be mad. And you'll say, well, I tried and it didn't work. The body learns habits by repetition. So let's just say you're a soda drinker and you have to have a Coke every day. I'm not telling you to stop drinking Coke cold turkey. I'm saying if you do it every day, on Tuesday for the next 2 to 3 weeks, don't drink Coke. After a month, your body will be used to not having Coke on Tuesday, and then you can add Thursday. If right now you're a sedentary person, meaning that you sit still and you don't do any exercise, please do not go out and start a 5-mile exercise walking routine. You're going to end up injuring yourself and getting frustrated. Just start with 15 minutes of anything. And this could be walking up and down the steps in your house. Just do that for 5 minutes because you don't do anything. So why not do 5 minutes of walking up and down the steps? I know we say this all the time, to park far away and walk to stores. I do it all the time. People who ride with me think it's ridiculous, but I literally do it. Like I park far away everywhere I go and I walk. Just, find one thing to make a change on. When you go out to eat and you want to change your portion sizes, ask for the goodie bag ahead of time. As soon as they bring the meal, tell them to bring a box with it. Put half of the meal off the plate into the box. Tell them to take it away into the kitchen. Because if you're like me, you're going to eat what's in that box. You're going to undo the knot and open it up while you sit there and talk, and you're going to stick your fork in there and eat it. So if it's not there, you won't eat it. If it's not in your house, you might not go get it. Depends on how much you want it. I'm going to go get it if I really want it. And then the last thing I want to add here is stay busy and change up your daily routine. It's when you get bored that you eat. I work from my home, and when I don't feel like doing something I have to do, or if I'm bored, I just go stand in the pantry and see what's there that I can eat. Or I just go stand in the refrigerator and look at something I can grab that I don't even need. I recommend changing your routine. And I mean literally changing your routine. If every day you drive the same way to work, do the same thing at work, go to lunch with the same people at the same place, come back home the same way, the change, is as simple as driving a different way home. It's not going to lunch with friends for one day and going someplace by yourself. It's going to lunch with friends at a different restaurant and everybody saying, hey, everyone, let's all eat 1/3 of what we normally eat just once. So anything that can change up your routine, keep you busy, join a club, a professional group, get involved with a religious organization, any of that. So let me first start with the question I saw about busty women. Let me see. Could you? Yeah. Okay. So let me tell you, a busty woman is the same thing as a woman with a big butt. It's fat tissue. Fat tissue makes up your breast and fat tissue makes up your butt. And fat is fat is fat, whether it's on your stomach, your breast, or your butt. Cardio, cardio, cardio. Portion control, avoiding simple carbs. Complex carbohydrates, yes. Portion control, not consuming a lot of sugar, heavy foods and drinks, soda, alcohol, beer, margaritas. I'm just so sorry, but it's true. These things are full of sugar, and it just causes you to put on weight. So how do you feel about riding the bicycle outside for pear shape? Bikes are really good. Let me tell you, the only caveat I have for pear shape and bike riding, spin classes, when they tell you to get up in the saddle, like stand up and turn your intensity up. They're like, and crank it to the right 3 times or 5 times. And then it's hard intensity and you're pumping out of the saddle. That I would avoid for a pear shape, because it's going to make your butt and your thighs even bigger. But if you're doing street riding, it's probably okay. Some cross-country bike riding might be a bit of a challenge because you're kind of pumping to get up some of those hills. So, it just depends on how much of a pear shape you are. But I think outside bike riding is great. I think the recumbent bicycle is great. I think a stationary bike is great. And even the spin classes are fantastic for a pear shape. Just be careful about how much intensity you pump it up and being up in the saddle. Okay, I've been looking at bodies for 22 years, hundreds and hundreds of bodies, all different ages, children, all the way up to 85-year-old women and men. If you want me to just video consult with you, just take a look at you top to bottom and tell you specifically, this is what you can do. This is what you need to do. And it's a full 30 minutes and you can ask me anything and it's all private, and we can even do some exercises. I can show them to you on the video, and that way you can do it from wherever you are and I can do it wherever I am. And that can be Skype or Facebook or any of that stuff. Okay. Get in. So all you have to do is go to AltheaLawton-Thompson.com. And when you get to the page and you scroll down, there's a section for holistic wellness. Just click that. Under the video, there's something that just says private sessions, phone or video. The promo that I offered was $39, but I do regular 30-minute and 1-hour video consultations with people all the time. And it's easy to book an appointment. You just go right here and you click whatever it is you want, a private in-person session, online, just want to talk about something on the phone, and you click it. And once you do that, it'll take you right to PayPal and you pay for it. And then it'll take you to a calendar like this. And it's very easy to schedule. You just pick a day. There's times all the way until late at night. There's times in the morning. You click the time you want. You say confirm, put your name in, and then I ask you all the questions about what you might want to talk about ahead of time, so I'm ready. So as soon as we get on the screen, I'm ready to just jump right into what you want. Not a lot of small talk unless you just want to have small talk. All right. Okay, elliptical for endomorph. Let me answer that question before I move on and show you my whole body type. The elliptical machine is really good for an endomorph. The endomorph, remember, is the one that carries weight through the middle of the body, and it can be top heavy or bottom heavy, meaning that they're carrying fat tissue in the breast and the butt. The elliptical machine is really great pretty much for all of the body types. The challenge is for someone who's bottom heavy. So if you're a bottom heavy endomorph and your butt is big and your thighs are really big and it's fat rather than muscle, you want to be careful with turning the intensity up too high so that you're working really hard to move your legs. Now, let me say this about the elliptical machines. There's 2 kinds. There's the elliptical machine that has the handles that move like this. And then there are the elliptical machines where you hold onto the rails and you move your legs around like a bicycle in air, like this. If it's the kind where you move your arms like this and you can manage the intensity in your arms, you have to be aware. You have to use your yoga thought here and be very aware. What you would do is turn the intensity up, do most of it as a push, lean in and think about pushing. That's going to work. all through the chest, the front of the shoulders and biceps, or triceps. Think about pulling, leaning back a little bit in the saddle. Your legs are going to automatically be moving whether you're going backwards or forward. Think about pulling, and now that's going to work the biceps. It's going to be like using a row machine and work the upper back and really get tone all around the scapula, which are these bones right here, and it just starts to tone all of this. So that's what happens when you lean back and you pull in that elliptical machine, and when you lean forward and push, you're working the anterior deltoid and the chest. If you're not concerned about building in the lower body, you could even let go of the handles and act like you're running, jog with your arms free, or hold on to the rails and let your legs do all the work. And if you're an endomorph that has those really pretty shapely legs I was talking about, really nice, well-shaped quads and nice calves and hamstrings, I say go for it, because it's just going to make them look even better. Oh, thank you. Y'all stop it. So good to see you. All right, you can go ahead and keep putting out any more questions, but now I'm going to turn the camera down so you can see what a pear shape looks like. All right. So this is a real live pear shape. Let me move my stool where I was sitting. Okay, so you can see that I have the smaller waist. It comes in. I have on my padded bra only because this is going to be on YouTube, and I just didn't want my nipples to be out there because I have children and stuff. But if I didn't have that on, this would be like really small, right? And then see how my hips come out. So let me stand back so you can see. See, my hips are wider than my shoulders. You can see that my thighs are thick. If I was a spoon shape, can I even squeeze I don't even know if I could. If I was spoon shaped, my thighs would be like this, right? I can't even do it, but they wouldn't be thick like that. There would be space that you could see there. And then I'm going to take it down so you can even see my knees and cankles. See how my knees are kind of fat? And see, this is a cankle. See how there's no ankle? It's just straight up calf all the way down to the floor. So that's a true pear shape. If I were to do lots of squats with like a Smith machine and have the bar and be pressing up and doing that, this would just get bigger. And this is a combination of muscle and fat because I'm bottom heavy. And then let's even talk about the junk in the trunk. Bam! What? Where's my glass? You can put a glass on that baby. Look at that. Don't play with me. That's what I'm talking about. In a spoon shape, they tend to be wider here, but flatter this way, right? Flat like that. But in my body type, it's just, I got a lot of stuff going on. I got these out here and I got this back here. And then for those of you all who have known me for a while, my stomach has always been really flat. But now there's the little baby, it's just a little pooch starting to come in. See it? And I know some of y'all are like, I don't see anything, but it's there. For those of you that know me, it's there. And then I'm starting to get some of this stuff. Like I could never have pinched that before. So that's what happens once you start getting closer to 50. But I tell you what, I'm happy with it. I'm good with it. We're aging gracefully. Okay, y'all, I have had so much fun with this body type webinar. I hope that you have learned a lot. If you do have other questions, my email address is althea@althealawton-thompson.com. And hopefully somebody took advantage of the private one-on-one video consultation so I can look at you and give you some ideas on what to do specifically for your body type. And another webinar one day, we'll talk about camouflage, how to dress to make your body look good. All outfits are not made for all body types, but that's a different webinar for a different night. Okay, I love and appreciate you all. Have a wonderful night. Peace, light, love. Namaste.